product solve a personal problem for you? You mentioned it solved a personal problem for you. How did it solve a personal problem as terms of like you mentioned with your pro cycling career that inventing this device allowed you to help you personally?
There were two things. The first thing was my wife was pregnant.
Okay.
And instead of training on the road and being away from the house for these long periods of time, I was doing about 40 to 60 hours a week on the road.
40 to 60 a week?
Yeah, that's a big day at the office. 40 to 60 hours a week, 24 hours. 40 to 60 a week? Yeah, I mean, if you calculate, it's 12 hours on a Tuesday, 12 hours on a Thursday, leaving the house at 6, coming back at 6, leaving on a Thursday at 6, coming back at 6, Friday night till Saturday night, through the night, 24 hours.
How many years did you do this before you decided, you know what, I should probably be doing this in my living room?
4.5.
4.5 years you were doing this?
Yeah.
You were gone with that crazy schedule?
That's right. But how many entrepreneurs? I mean, you were talking about your schedule.
Yeah.
Your schedule is as crazy, but it's just in a different format.
Hey, I'm just saying this because there's a lot of people watching this who we want to be an entrepreneur, we want to be a leader, we want to be, but some of the time trade-offs, we're not realizing how much time
it takes. It takes a lot of time and energy, and then you have to shuffle and balance between that and your personal life.
And you wanted to have
your own life. There's business life, there's your life, and there's the life of your family.
And
there's like sort of 3 lives.
Because you want to have a great relationship with your wife and with your family, with your kids, with the whole thing. And so you brought this into the living room.
I brought it into the garage.
The garage.
And it was in the garage. And my wife was inside. And my wife would go to sleep peacefully because she knew I wasn't on the road for 24 hours during the night, pushing myself. And I was at home and I was safe.
So walk me through the process of turning this idea that you could practice in your garage into turning it into an actual product. What was that process like?
It was a big process because when I started, I had to deal with myself. And that was a tough one. Because with the way I grew up in South Africa, I was privileged in one respect, but I still had all the other dragons that I had to deal with. So when I got onto the bicycle, I was healing dragons within myself as I was getting fit and healthy. So as I was dealing with the dragons and I was getting fit and healthy, I started to focus and channel my energy and look at what the opportunity would look like.
What were the biggest roadblocks that you faced? I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs are going to face every entrepreneur is going to face roadblocks along the way.
Yes.
What were the biggest roadblocks that you faced?
Trying to find a manufacturer.
Really?
And trying to find the funding to be able to make the prototypes, to go to the manufacturer. And when I called Schwinn, the biggest cycling company in the world, and said I had a great idea to teach exercise classes on a stationary bike, they said, well, that's why we make stationary bikes, for people like you to buy them. That was a tough one.
Schwinn.
But I went back to Schwinn 4 years later and said I will sign the contract. They showed up at my living room one night with a knock on the door. See, what happened was I decided to get my own bikes. I learned from that. I actually did buy a couple of Schwinn bikes and I put them in my garage and I invited people to come and play on these Schwinn bikes. So they actually gave me the idea. I then went and built the first prototype. These classes became so successful, we opened up our first dojo with 20 bikes in them, and they were Schwinn bikes, but the bikes kept breaking down. So I built a prototype. Then what happened was Schwinn heard through the grapevine that there was a cycling class happening on bicycles that was becoming the talk of the town. It was on the television. It was in the newspapers. The celebrities were coming to take these classes, and it was becoming an underground rage.
Now, are you a welder by trade, or how'd you make a prototype? What did you do? Are you a metal worker?
No.
How'd you do it?
I met a friend of mine, and I said, here's the geometry. This is what I'm looking at. These are some of the tweaks. Do you think you could make this for me? And he went to work and he started to come up with some of the concepts that I had. These concepts were based around my real road racing bike. And when I figured out that people had been sitting on a stationary bike for a lifetime, they never stood out of the saddle, they never moved from side to side, they didn't have water bottles on the bikes at that stage, I was onto something special.